Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we've been working on this Luna rover, and we got to the moon last episode and promptly discovered that our lander was unbalanced, which is not ideal, to be sure. We're still going to have a slight issue with the overall aiming of the thing, but I think it's probably going to be manageable. So let's go ahead and launch this from the DSC launch pad, like so. And we're just going to try to get through this fairly quickly here, because we'd like to get the landing completed. Okay, so let's put this at 70 degrees, throttle up, and off we go. Let's put this at 2x speed for the time being. And we're going to put this in orbital mode. We're going to hold here until our apoapsis is about 20-ish kilometers. So that's 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Now we're going to lock velocity to prograde, and we're just going to let this drop on down. So that seems absolutely fine for the moment. Our apoapsis is going to go up pretty high, but let's see how we're doing on these SRBs. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and they are out of fuel. Cool. Next up, of course, is going to be our fairing deployment, and we're quite high on the apoapsis at this point at about 100 kilometers. I'm going to drop us down to about 10 degrees, and we'll keep an eye on that time to apoapsis. I'm also going to jettison this fairing. Ugh, that is such an awkward jettisoning. Okay, time to apoapsis is going up at this point, so let's just hold here for the moment. I'm going to put our apoapsis, I think, at about 200 kilometers. That should be reasonably fine. So this is 185, 190. That's 200. Okay, we've got a little bit of fuel left here, but not very much. So that is understood. At the apoapsis, let's go ahead and put ourselves into orbit. So this would be right around 200. This is going to be like 700 meters per second. Okay, noted. Let's go ahead and execute that. And we're going to have to fire up this stage partway through. Cool. So let's get out of here. There we go. And we're going to have to accelerate this up a fair amount, about 500 meters per second, but that is understood. We went fairly high rather than going low. So we know that we have orientation that we can do on this. It's not very snappy, so that is understood. The overall landing on it might be a little awkward, but let's go ahead and accelerate through this burn as well. We know that this is going to be about another 1.5 minutes on this burn, which should be absolutely fine. We've got about 300 meters, 350 to go on this, 350 meters per second. So that seems fine. 70 seconds of burn time remaining. And yeah, overall, this looks pretty okay. So we're going to do basically the same thing to get to the moon as we did previously. We know we want to be in a fairly high orbit for a polar orbit. That'll be okay. 100 meters per second left in the circularization burn. We're officially in orbit as of now. Cool. So this isn't going to be perfect accuracy. It doesn't need to be. So that is absolutely fine. Let's grab Luna then, and we're going to target Luna. And then, of course, we want to push out sometime around here or so, most likely. I think it needs to be a little later because of a Brigo encounter. This is reasonably fine. So we would then push this out to be something along the lines of... If I can actually grab this, that would be nice. Okay, something kind of along the lines of this in terms of the overall directionality. That seems okay. Let's go ahead and execute that. That will be a 4.5 minute burn. Okay, so we'll accelerate our way through that. Absolutely fine. And of course, we don't need to have our wheels active at this time. Let's turn those off for the moment. We'll turn them back on a bit later on, but we don't need to be burning battery at this moment. And we can see that the recharge rate here is pretty decent, actually. Surprisingly so. Okay, that seems fine for now. Cool. So this is going to be a good chunk of our fuel for this stage, but this is exactly what this fuel was planned to be used for. So we're about 30% done with this burn at this point. We've got 850 meters per second to go, and we need to get ourselves into an orbit here, and we need to advance time once we get into this orbit. I'm not going to drop the orbit down as far. I'm just going to circularize it, but we need to advance time once we get there to the point where the South Pole base is in sunlight. That is going to be a useful thing. And then we will go for our inclination change and approach all in one go, as opposed to previously where we wasted a bunch of DV. So that will be absolutely fine. We've still got another 80 seconds of burn time left here on this particular burn, but it's all looking good. About another 350 meters per second, and if we look in here, we can see we've got about 2 kilometers per second in this stage. So that is very, very okay. We have no problems with that. So let's get ourselves into this polar encounter. That'll be a pretty decent polar encounter, it looks like. 20 seconds left in the burn, and we'll come out of this warp speed fairly quickly here. Okay, let's come on out of that. 3, 2, 1, and I think we overshot it a little bit. Let's put ourselves over at the retrograde marker. And let's just see about tweaking this a teeny tiny bit. Not much at all, but a very, very small tweak. Eventually, we'll get to the retrograde marker. This thing is pretty heavy, so we'll just do it that way to lerp ourselves there. Okay, and you can see here this is going between green and not green. Let's just bring this back a very small amount to approximately there. Okay, this should be an approach. Let's go ahead and warp up over here. And continue to warp on in. And let's just do our sphere of influence change. There we go. So now what I want to do is here at the periapsis, we're going to do a braking burn and put ourselves into a circularized orbit. So 1116 is the goal. A little bit more than that. 1117, this'll do. So that is absolutely fine. We're in a fairly polar orbit here, but as we can see, the timing is not necessarily perfect. But let's go ahead and run this burn. This will be 289 meters per second on this burn. And we've got a lot of speed remaining. So changing our overall inclination at this altitude is not going to be very complicated, but we are going to do a little bit of a waiting period here for sure. We're going to want to wait until this is in sunlight. It's right on the terminator right now, and if I recall correctly, it's going the wrong way. It's going into shadow. So that's okay. We got 40 tech points from this, sure. Okay, so about 5 seconds left in this braking burn. All is looking good. Yeah, that'll do. This is close enough. So at this point, I want to be simply warping forward. So yeah, you can see that's going into darkness there. So let's let this go around. We're going to want to go for about a month here, somewhere around there. We've got lots and lots of time, so that's not a concern. So let this cruise right on around and get into the sunlight. Then we're going to go for our approach. Okay, somewhere around here is probably pretty good. So let's take that down to normal speed. And I would like to change our overall inclination sometime around here to just bring this out over this direction. And at the same time, I'm going to toss in a retrograde burn. So we're just angling ourselves out and dropping down our overall altitude. So is this overshooting on the normal? I think it is. Somewhere around there or so. And that's 14.2 kilometers of altitude. I want that to be a little higher. We're going to angle for about 30 kilometers of altitude. Somewhere like that. So that gets our inclination change and our braking burn all in one, and it's 154 meters per second. Let's go ahead and execute that. Cool. It's not going to be perfect, looks like, but that's fine. We can tweak it on the other side. Actually, it's pretty good, I think. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So that seems fine for now. There we go. So now the next question is, at the periapsis, can we burn this down, or how much DV is it going to take to get this down to a similar roughly 32 kilometers altitude? Okay, so that's going to be about here or so, 187 meters per second. If we check our overall trajectory, we can see it's definitely going to need a little bit of a tweak. We can put it about there or so. That'll be approximately correct. So then we can bring this down a little bit more like so, and the inclination looks good. 196 meters per second. Let's do it. Okay. So we're going to do something along the lines of that. About a 23-second burn here. And then we're going to need to get rid of our horizontal velocity. Now, how much delta V do we have left here? We can see we're going to be traveling at about 750 meters per second in orbital velocity or so, thereabout. And we can see we've got 1.09 kilometers per second here. So that's looking pretty decent, actually. So let's go ahead and warp to... Which direction are we going? Are we going this way, or are we going this way? We should be going this way, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what the fade here is indicating. I always get confused about that. But let's see. This is going to be in 48 minutes. No, we're going this way. Okay, that's fine. So in that case, we'd want to do our maneuver sometime around here. Retrograde burn this. And we would want this delta V to be minus 720. About like that. So that's going to bring us virtually straight on down to somewhere like here. There we go. And let's go ahead and execute that. Cool. So we need to get rid of all of this velocity. And for the moment, we're going to be landing on this fuel up until the time that we run out of fuel on that, which likely will happen. So we're going to want to change our rotation, not like that, but like this. We want to be oriented like so. This thing doesn't like to be in its correct roll orientation, but that's okay. So we're just getting rid right now of this lateral speed. That's what we're trying to do. Okay. So once that's gone, we know what our vertical position should be. It should be 0 here. So that should be absolutely fine. We just need the lateral speed to be virtually entirely eliminated. You can see that our vertical speed is starting to pick up at this point, and that is absolutely understood. You can see that the vertical speed is going up while our lateral speed is still going down because we are angling like so. And actually, I don't exactly want to be at this position. I want to be right up over here. So I'm going to get rid at this point of that. And we're just watching that lateral speed, 30 meters per second, 20. And that's 0.46. That's increasing the lateral speed. Okay, so that looks reasonably fine. So what do we have left? 341 meters per second. Okay, let's lock velocity to retrograde for the time being. So we're going to turn this like so. And we've still got some velocity in this tank, so we're going to utilize that. Now you can see this reaction wheel, this poor reaction wheel, it's struggling to turn all of this, and that's not a surprise. So we're going to land a little off from the Luna base, but that's okay. We are not concerned about that one. Okay, so our current ground level altitude is about 28 kilometers. We're coasting at this moment. And that's reasonably fine. I'm just thinking about when we might want to do a burn here to slow ourselves down. I'm thinking a little higher than I normally would. I'm thinking about 20 kilometers because we're going to need to re-angle this, right? So 20 kilometers seems reasonably fine in theory. That should give us a lot of time to reorient and have this thing be, in theory, at its correct positioning. So we're 22 kilometers up right now, and we'll let this continue to drop for a little bit. 21 kilometers. Okay, 20 kilometers now. So what we're doing at this moment is we are simply dropping this speed with this remaining DV, just to buy ourselves some time and reduce the amount of gravitational potential energy that these need to reduce. Okay, so that brought us down to about 20 meters per second and was about half of our remaining DV. So that's definitely noted. We'll let this accelerate back down. I'm going to, I think, resume the burn at about 15 kilometers. And we'll see how that feels. So you can see we're accelerating back up here. Our lateral speed is at about 3 meters per second, which is not exactly where we want to be. So we may want to move this here to be like 83 or so. Something about like that. To push this direction. Okay. So I'm going to start up a gentle burn here, with the idea being we want this lateral velocity to get to about 0. So that's about 1.5. Okay. Now I'm putting us back on velocity retrograde and throttling us up. We're burning the rest of this fuel off. Okay. Moving this back. And getting rid of that lateral speed. Okay. The fuel is basically gone at this point. Let's put ourselves at about here. Just checking that lateral speed. Okay. That's basically no lateral speed right there. Let's get this last 14 meters per second burned. Okay. There we go. Staging. And this should be separated now. And we want to put this at 0. Okay. So there we go. Now we're at about 11 kilometers of altitude. And our speed is a little up there for sure. I'm wondering what our thrust to weight is and whether we're stable. 1.97 and yes. Ish. Okay. That's noted. Heading doesn't matter here. Let's put this at a pitch of about -5 to start with. We're stable-ish, but I noted that we did kick up a little bit there, so that is noted. Okay. Yeah. That's definitely noted. We need to be slowing down a fair amount here, so that's exactly what we're looking to do. We're currently about 7 kilometers up, and we need to slow this right on down. Okay, so we're currently about 50 meters per second. I think we're overburning right now, but you can see that we do end up being fairly stable here. We're picking up some lateral speed, so I'm going to put us at about -10 for our default pitch. Maybe even -11. Let's see where this sits at. Do we need to go this way? Yes. Noted. Okay. That's fine. We'll sit about here. We'll let ourselves accelerate up for a moment here. This is a pretty decent speed at this point. I suspect we'd survive if we impacted at this speed. But let's let this accelerate down a little. And I'm more concerned than anything about this lateral speed at this moment. And I think that there's a reason that that's happening. Yeah, there definitely is a reason that that's happening. So let's bring this lateral speed down. We're about 4 kilometers up right now. This is more about removing the lateral speed than about getting rid of the surface velocity at this moment. So we're down to about 4 meters per second. 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's starting to go back up, cutting that engine. Let's put this at about 5-degree pitch. Okay, so you can see that our surface velocity is currently about 20 meters per second. And we're going to drop that soon, but I think we'll start a burn at about 3 kilometers. Even that's probably a little bit too early, but we'll see what that feels like. Yeah, that's going to be too early. I'm going to do it at 2.5. Okay, 2.5 kilometers, starting burn. We can see that lateral speed building up. I'm going to increase our pitch a bit here. Still going up. It's going the other way. Okay, so we're going to need to bring this down to decrease that lateral speed. There, it's going down. Okay, that looks decent. Now I'm going to put this at 0 for the moment. Decreasing. Looks good. We're still a little too high up, so let's let this coast for a moment. Lateral speed is up there, but it's not that big of a deal. We are, after all, wheeled. Okay, we're at 1 kilometer at this point. So let's go ahead and slow ourselves down again. Okay, noting lateral speed increase. And we're moving at 8 meters per second right now, so let's let this coast a moment. 15 meters per second should be quite safe. Okay, let's put ourselves about here. I want to be slowing down. Okay. 17. 10 meters per second. So you can see here we have virtually entirely lateral speed. So I want to be putting ourselves down over here. We're actually going up at this moment, and we don't necessarily want that. So let's just put ourselves about here, decreasing that lateral speed. Our vertical speed is also decreasing at this time. So let's just hold here for the moment and put ourselves about here. Okay. 4 meters per second. And there we go. So I detached those right before we landed. And let's get ourselves onto the ground here. There we go. Oh, this is very bouncy. Okay, so the issue here is these wheels have that suspension. That's going to be maybe a little awkward because we need to leave the crater by getting at least 35 kilometers away from the center. Okay, well, we're going to need to turn on these wheels. I'm not sure. Oh, I know why. There we go. Stop doing what you're doing. There you go. Now, the suspension is going to be a bit of an issue. The question is, what direction does it mean when it says away from the center of the crater? It means away from here? Okay. Noted. So the suspension is absolutely going to be a bit of an issue, but we can travel this direction, right? And we're already 15 kilometers away. Do we have to remain grounded the entire time? I don't know. I don't know if we were even grounded there. So the suspension is definitely way overpowered. If I thought that we could get away with it, I would take this back and remove the suspension from this, because that is absolutely the issue that we're having right now. I always forget that this has this incredibly overpowered suspension by default. I always forget that. I wish that it didn't, but alas, here we are. So we can definitely accelerate this up and travel out of the crater here, but it is about time to put a cut in. So that is also something to consider. I mean, this thing should be quite safe to careen through fairly quickly. But as you can see, we've only traveled about 1 kilometer, so I think we're going to finish this in the next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy Magar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Hiro Marutsu, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.